So Mayor Pete released his healthcare plan. It's just a public option, but he calls it Medicare for all who want it. And of course, he makes a big deal about, I don't want to take away your choice, bro. And Bernie Sanders does. Elizabeth Warren does. Like, come on. I'm pro-choice to get screwed over by a rapacious, unnecessary mafia middleman. And they're not. They're against the mafia stealing from you. I'm for it if you want it. Hey, if you want it, it's your choice. So anyway, he went on CNN and he proceeded, I should say, to do a smear attack against the supporters of Medicare for All.
Healthcare, the number one issue on the minds of many Democratic voters. You introduced your new Medicare for all who want it healthcare plan today. That's what you call it. It includes a public government option for healthcare, or lets people keep their private insurance if they want to. Now, you wrote in a Washington Post op-ed, quote, "With my plan, we can achieve universal healthcare and a public alternative without raising taxes on the middle class. I've always said that anyone who lets the words Medicare for all escape their lips should tell us just as plainly how they plan to get there." You seem there to be accusing some of your rivals of not being upfront about how they intend to pay for Medicare for all. Stephen Colbert earlier this week seemed to suggest that Senator Elizabeth Warren wasn't being upfront.
You know, Senator Warren is known for being straightforward and was extremely evasive when asked that question. And we've seen that repeatedly. I think that if you are proud of your plan and it's the right plan, you should defend it in straightforward terms. And I think it's puzzling that when everybody knows the answer to that question of whether her plan and Senator Sanders' plan will raise middle-class taxes is yes, why you wouldn't just say so and then explain why you think that's the better way forward. Our plan does not require raising middle-class taxes. It does create a way for everybody to be covered. And I think that's what most Americans want. Look, people are used to Washington politicians not giving straight answers to simple questions. But at a time like this, on an issue this important, that's exactly what we need.
Your health care proposal seems to share a lot with that being proposed by former Vice President Joe Biden. How are they different? Why would yours be better?
Well, first of all, I don't think that it's enough to simply build on the ACA. Certainly the ACA was a leap forward, and we should be thankful that the Obama administration delivered that. But we know that far too many Americans are finding that they still can't get good insurance, or when they have insurance, affordability remains an enormous problem. We're seeking to attack the problem of affordability from several angles. Insurance, but also looking at what's driving those costs in the first place. And I really do believe the public alternative will be better. It could well be the glide path that leads to a Medicare for all environment. I just don't think it's a good idea to command Americans to adopt Medicare for all, whether they want it or not. Under my plan, if you prefer to keep your private insurance, you can. I just think that ours will be better, and if we're right, then Americans will decide that for themselves.
Except, by its very nature, when you leave the for-profit health insurance companies in control of the insurance market, they will do everything they can to push off the sick people and put them on the public option, and they will try to keep all the healthy people, and so they will be able to make more profit. So you end up overburdening the public system, and you end up having a situation where the quality goes down. So you do, basically what ends up happening is you have this like really watered down, terrible half-measure, half-assed attempt at a public option, and then you have the for-profit health insurance companies still being a rapacious mafia middleman robbing everybody, but they try their best to only take the healthy people and kind of pawn off the sick ones to the government plan. So you can't have the existence of the public and the private in this instance, because the real issue is the whole notion of profit for health insurance. That whole notion, that whole concept is incredibly problematic in the same way that, Pete would understand, hey, private prisons are problematic, right? Like, we shouldn't have private prisons because that's a perverse incentive structure to make profit off of locking people up, because you're incentivizing then locking more people up. He would understand that argument. He understands it's crazy to talk about choice and having a private fire department option, but for some reason with health insurance, because he has the bias towards the status quo, he's like, well, what do you mean? I want to take away choice. Again, choice to get price gouged by a rapacious mafia middleman. That's what that is. Okay, now, when he says, basically, his plan is, quote, that's what most Americans want, but that's not true. 70% of the country wants Medicare for all. Even in the polls that are the least charitable to Medicare for all, it's over 50%. So Americans want Medicare for all. When you tell Americans, hey, do you want a Medicare for all system, but it takes away your private health insurance, the poll drops to, no, we don't want that. But then as soon as you clarify, but you get to keep your doctor in your hospital, it goes back up again and goes well over 50%. So every poll that's honest in their framing of the question, Americans want Medicare for all. Every other developed country has one version or another of a single-payer system. That's Medicare for all. So when he says that, it's just not true, and he's being misleading. And I think he knows that it's not true, but he doesn't care because he's a politician, and he's playing a game. And this isn't a game we should be playing because, lives are at stake here. And then finally, and this is the main point of what he said there, Elizabeth Warren was being evasive when asked the question about whether or not middle-class taxes will go up. Now, was she being evasive? Yes. However, the reason why Elizabeth Warren and Bernie are evasive when that question is asked is because it's a bullshit question. It is incredibly misleading in the way that it's framed, where what they're doing is they're fishing for a little soundbite that they can then use to clobber them over the head. And that little soundbite is if you say, yes, taxes will be raised, it'll be taken out of context, they'll run it on headlines, and they'll try to make everybody believe that they want regular Americans to pay more. When, of course, the real situation is they are eliminating all of the private taxes that you have to pay. What are private taxes? Premiums, copays, deductibles, which amount to a higher percentage of your income than the public tax increase would under Medicare for All system. They want to act like, oh, they said raise taxes on the middle class, full stop. Like that's the end of the conversation, and you're going to pay more, average Joe and Jane. And that's why they're evasive, because they're trying to avoid the media being incredibly misleading and taking them out of context. So as I've advised all these candidates, not personally, but just on the show, the way you respond to that question is when they say, do you want to raise middle-class taxes? You say, no. And they're going to react like, what? And that's when you say, very simply, I'm eliminating private taxes, premiums, copays, and deductibles that you pay to your unnecessary, rapacious, for-profit health insurance company. Eliminating those. No more private taxes, and I'm raising public taxes, but the average American will net save a tremendous amount of money. And by the way, everything will be covered, as opposed to now, you pay more in private taxes and you don't get as much. That's it. That's all you say. So, but that's the point. The point is, the reason why they're evasive is because it's a totally bullshit question that they're trying to take them out of context over. So, in my opinion, you have every right to be evasive if it's a question that shouldn't have been asked. If it's a question that's utterly ridiculous, it's like, hey man, when did you stop beating your wife? It's this old canard. When did you stop beating your wife? What? Like what? No. The trick is in the question. So don't get mad at my response. I'm going to respond however I want to respond because I'm dealing with dishonest actors here who are malicious. So yeah, I'm going to respond however I want to respond, and I'm going to handle it the way I should handle it. And then you can, oh, you're being evasive. No, the problem is the question was bullshit up front, Mayor Petey. Jesus Christ, man. So really, he's the one that's incredibly misleading, as he's accusing them of being misleading. Now, by the way, don't give Elizabeth Warren too much credit. Her specific plan that she released, that she's calling Medicare for All, never mentions single payer and uses the weasel words access to health care. So it's not as good as the Jayapal bill. It's not as good as the Bernie Sanders bill. And there are questions as to how she would implement it. But having said that, there's a very specific and obvious and honest reason as to why they sound evasive when they're asked that shitty question. It's because the question is designed to mislead the American people. So it requires more than a one-word answer. It requires an actual explanation, okay? So when they're trying to put you in a corner, The fact of the matter is, sometimes I'm a little too thoughtful to react like that. Okay? We need to actually explain it, and it takes more than 3 seconds. How terrible is Mayor Pete? There was a time when he was pretending to be more like Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders. There was a time when he was doing that. And then he realized pretty quickly, oh, there's no lane for me there. So now, all of a sudden, he's going full centrist goon. And it shows you he doesn't believe in anything. He's just trying to find a path to get elected. That's it. He doesn't actually believe in anything. He believes in Mayor Pete becoming president, and that's it.